Chapter 4. We rode on until at last, dew-damp and bone-weary, we came upon a small inn, where we took a room for what remained of the night. In the morning, after breaking fast with cold beef and ale, we set out once more, still heading south. My thighs were chafed raw from the constant motion of the horse, and every sinew and muscle ached fiercely. About midday, I got up enough courage to ask, "When will we be there?" The stranger gave me a glowering glance. "We will be there when we get there." Even in daylight, I saw little of his face, for he never pulled back the hood except by accident. I did, however, memorize every square inch of the back of his cloak. I despaired of that day ever reaching its end, but of course it did, and with it our journey. Just as the sun rounded the corners of the earth, we came around a bend in the road, and before us lay a landscape of stark steeples and thatched roofs glowing golden in the last rays of the sun. More buildings than I had ever seen in one place. "Is this London, then?" I asked, forgetting in my astonishment the commandment to hold my tongue. Unexpectedly, the stranger laughed. "Hardly. It's only Leicester." "I've heard of that," I said, feeling like an ignorant lumpkin. Before we quite entered the town, we turned off the road and down a narrow lane to a substantial house surrounded by a high hedge. The stranger guided our horse down a cobbled walk to a stable nearly as imposing as the house. I was scarcely able to believe that we had reached our destination, but the stranger dismounted and snapped, "Don't sit there like a dolt, get down." My legs were in such a condition that they buckled under me. The stranger seized my arm and all but dragged me to the rear of the house. As we came around the corner, we nearly collided with a husky youth who was headed for the stable. He stepped aside quickly and bobbed his head apologetically. "You're back, then? I'll see to your horse, sir." "Give her an extra ration of oats. She's had a hard trip." "Right, sir." The boy tried to be on his way, but the master stopped him. "Adam?" "Yes, sir." "Your place is in the stable. Stay out of the kitchen." "I will, sir." He hurried off. "Lazy swad," the man muttered. We entered a spacious kitchen, lit not by rush lights, but by actual candles. A plain young woman in a linen apron and cap was busy at the fireplace. "We'll be wanting supper, Libby," the man told her. "The boy will have his in his room." "The garret?" the girl asked. The man nodded brusquely, turned and was gone. The girl looked me over curiously. "Where are you from?" "Berwick and Elmet." She raised her eyebrows, as though I'd said I'd come from the Antipodes. "Where's that?" "Up Yorkshire way, near Leeds." "I see," she said, as if that explained something. My appearance, perhaps, or my speech. "Well, come, best get you to your room." "I'm to have a room of me own?" "It looks that way, don't it?" She picked up a candle and led me through the pantry and up a set of steps which in my exhaustion I was hard put to climb, to a small attic room. "Here you are." "It's not much." It could have been a pit full of snakes for all I cared. The moment she was gone, I blew out the candle and collapsed on the bed. I expected to be shaken awake at the crack of dawn, but when I finally woke, the sun was streaming through the gabled windows. I leaped up, hardly knowing where I was, struck my head on the low ceiling and sat down again. For several minutes I remained there, holding my head and letting my mind adjust to these new and strange surroundings. A pewter bowl of cold meat, carrots and potatoes sat beside the bed. I gobbled it in a trice, then tried standing again. My legs felt uncertain, and my foot still pained me. Hearing footfalls on the stairs, I straightened myself and tried to look as though I had been up for hours and awaiting my master's call. But my visitor was only the stable boy. He thrust my bundle of clothing into my arms. "I'd put on something clean if I was you," he said. "You smell." It seemed wicked to don my Sunday garb on an ordinary day. but it was all I had. The bundle had been tampered with, untied, and hastily retied. I spread the clothing out on my bed and found my wallet, which had contained my meagre savings. The money was gone, every farthing. Though I was sure it was the stable boy's doing, I knew better than to say so. I was the new boy here, and I had long since learned that new boys have no rights. I would have to content myself with cursing him, roundly and silently. When I carried my dirty clothing downstairs, the girl called Libby took them and gingerly dropped them in a basket. The master said to bring you to him as soon as you were up, but I expect you want to be fed first. I've eaten what was in the bowl. She clucked her tongue. That was last night's supper, you ninny. You were asleep when I brought it up. I shrugged. It served well enough as breakfast. Dinner more like. It's nearly noon. Come then. As we passed from the kitchen into a great open room, I said, Will you be cross with me, do you whiz? She cast me the same doubtful glance she'd given when I told her where I hailed from. Whiz? Aye, I said, wondering what she found so strange in a word I'd used all my life. Libby led me up a wide staircase to a large gallery with a dozen windows and tapestry hung between them. I can't say whether he'll be cross or no. He's a queer one, the master is. She turned and whispered, Not to tell him I said so now. I made a cross over my heart as proof that I would not. We stopped before a panelled door on which the girl knocked lightly. Enter, called a voice from within. The girl motioned me inside. As Libby pushed the door shut, she sent me an encouraging wink. The room in which I found myself was so foreign that I might have stepped into another land. A soft carpet covered the floor. 2 of the panelled walls were hung with pictures. The other 2 were obscured top to bottom by more books than I would have suspected existed in all of England. If this is but Leicester, I thought, what must London be like? So awed was I that it was a moment before my eyes fell on the figure at the writing desk, bent over some close task. Which? He said without turning. I swallowed nervously. I? Come sit down. I was almost at the man's side before he looked up from his papers. I stared dumbly at him. This was not the fearsome stranger who had brought me here. This was a mild-looking man with a well-trimmed beard and a balding head of hair of an odd reddish hue. He smiled slightly at my obvious bewilderment. My name is Simon Bass, he said. I am your new master.